What's up YouTube? I'm Vaughn and this is the Gear channel where we discuss collectibles, hobbies, competitive games from tabletop to video games, and today we're going to be coaching you how to be a better player and for free. But jokes aside, we're going to be providing you with the right tools, so this is something that's going to benefit your playstyle quite a bit, and also ideas on how to alter specific decks which you could carry on in the future, and those tools are always going to stay by you. But before we begin, friendly reminder as always to like and subscribe because it really helps the channel a lot and I do really appreciate it. So let's get started. So starting first, a lot of players ask one question, and that is, what is the best platform to use to playtest with? And honestly, that is a horrible question because there's no one answer for it, because the correct answer is that there's actually a ladder to follow. So the first platforms you want to use are the automated ones. So you have your yugioh Pro, you have your Duelist Nexus, even Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, because we're improving your playstyle skills. So which format to apply it towards is any, and it's not relative at all because you could take these tools and skills and apply for any format. Now the reason why this is a good platform to actually start with is because to understand your deck, to learn the combos, this is great. But this is a terrible platform to rely on because a lot of players make the biggest mistake at in-person tournaments, and that is not remembering any trigger effects or open window for activations because of the notification that is always popping up on these platforms. So they get so used to that when they play in person, they are completely different and they're not playing as good as they do on these platforms. So one thing that you want to do is progress and move towards Dueling Book, because Dueling Book has a very similar layout. So when you are comboing up, visually, you'll be reminded of key points in your combo that usually you would get a notification for. So it's a very similar platform to play on, but it is missing that key element. So you'll be able to adjust and get used to this. So then you'll be much more prepared for in-person tournament. But there's a big difference of Dueling Book and local tournament because one, the graveyard and the deck layout is not the same because you have everything displayed very nicely. So it gives you more of an open-minded to actually make your strategy and your follow-up plays. While in person, you definitely don't have that. And also one key point is the time rule, which brings us to our next step, and that is knowing the game mechanic and the policy. Now, there's a lot of benefit of knowing both of these, especially the game mechanic, because when you get your notifications on the automated simulations, okay, you might understand like the triggers and also open game state in those, but you don't have a full understanding of why this occurs. So understanding the game mechanic and reading the rule book, you will benefit a lot. Now I know some of you started this game without ever reading the rule book or the policy because you had a friend that taught them or even a store teaching you. Same thing happens to even judges. There's many judges that never read the rule book or policy, but it makes a big difference because the player that has the most knowledge of the mechanic and also the policy has the biggest advantage in that game. Believe it or not, a lot of my ruling videos that I do is actually a straight up copy paste from the rule book, and it impresses me every time that I read it because there's always information that you might miss, but it definitely provides a lot of additional information compared to anywhere else. And there's also a specific like ladder to follow when you are going towards local event and higher tier events, because at local events majority of the judge ruling has to do with card to card interactions, okay, and this is something that you could definitely learn from local events. But at higher tier events, it majority has to do with game mechanic and also policy. So by being prepared and knowing your game mechanic and policy, you're actually over prepared for local events and just decently prepared for higher tier events. So then it leads towards our next step. Losing is the most beneficial thing for altering your deck, because Yu-Gi-Oh is almost like playing pool. When you're against a really good player, you are always getting better and you are increasing your skills. Okay, so having losses is very beneficial, especially compared towards your winning, because when you lose towards an opponent, then you could actually get a clear view of which cards to stay, and also you could definitely test for interactions and also consistency. Now this I would know because I just posted a video of me getting first place, and since I was banned since June, I was getting nothing like fifth place, seventh place, ninth place, 12th place. So I've been accumulating quite a bit of losses. But every time I lost, I altered my deck. Also, I haven't been playing for a year, so I asked multiple questions towards my opponent as well for like the formats, what was appropriate interruptions, what was better way to interrupt them as well. So this was like key elements for me to better my deck was to always lose. And let's be honest, your opponent is much more reluctant to have a conversation with you after they win. Now, this is applied towards mostly the main deck and not the side deck, because for the side deck, one key thing that you have to know is understanding the meta. Now, the best thing is to be as diverse as possible, because when you are diverse and you understand other decks, then you know how to counter them. Now, one key thing to know is that when you are playing against your opponent, to ask as much questions as possible to get familiar with their deck so you have a fully understanding, and also to resort back towards those platforms that's automated. Those platforms are actually quite good for learning new decks that you are going up against just by learning the simple combo plays of it and knowing when to interrupt. That could benefit you quite a bit. Another thing that you could do is that after your match, spectate, look at other matches, see how that player is playing that specific deck, and also look at his opponent, see how that opponent is interrupting his plays and why he's choosing doing these specific interruptions at this specific time. Now, there's no issue of having conversation with them after the match, and a lot of players don't really mind this. Like, you could definitely socialize quite a bit, which definitely leads us towards a next step, which is socializing. Now, the greatest players of all time have one key thing in common: they are very social. You could go up to them, have a conversation, and there you go. And the reason why this is so beneficial is because by having conversations with other players, you're able to learn either card to card interactions, you learn either new combos, how to better your deck as well, and you get a lot more information of learning even like the meta. So a lot of these players at these events, they don't have an issue for you socializing with them and having a conversation. Now, you have to keep in mind there is a difference of having a conversation, socializing like that, and also demanding a favor. So especially when that's a physical one, there's a big difference of me asking you a few ruling questions and me asking you to look at my deck and change it for my benefit. Now, some of you might disagree and be like, no, they're both time consuming and both the same. But let me give you an example. Like, imagine if you came up to me and there's 5 minutes on a clock and you asked me to look through your deck and change it, alter it for your benefit, but I kind of want to go for a cigarette at the same time. It's kind of hard for me to go for a cigarette. We go outside, I look at your deck and all that. So you want to keep the conversation completely verbal so you can benefit the most, because there's a big difference that we both go outside and we have a discussion like outside. So at least we're both in par. And if you're not comfortable with socializing, well, I'm going to tell you this is something that you're going to have to do, because you're not going better yourself or increase your skill if you just go into your tournaments with your head down, don't talk to anyone, just play your game and then leave. At least practicing being so as setting that you are most comfortable in is incredible, and it's really good practice, because after that maybe you could actually lead that and take those trades outside of Yu-Gi-Oh, because there's a lot of benefits to socializing. It could lead towards job opportunity, business, even pleasure. This is definitely a very good trait to have. And that's it for our tools that we provided to help you become a better player. Now, if any of these help you, or you think that this is something that can potentially help, because I know it's not going to happen in a day. This is something that's going to be a long process, but it's going to be something that is going to stick by you forever. So if this video helped you, definitely like and subscribe. And if you want a sneak peek of future products we're planning to review here on the channel, you can follow me on my Instagram, VaughnGear, and also we have different membership as well. So if you're interested in any of those pages, I'll make sure to put the link in the description down below with the rulebook and also the policy as well. I'm Vaughn, and this was the Gear Channel.